Hey, good people, how you doing? David Taub here, co-creator of NextLevelGuitar.com. I hope all is going well, and I hope your guitar journey is going famously. And today I have a really cool little device I'm going to show you that you could throw into your lead playing that's going to give your scales and arpeggios a little bit of a funky kind of twist to them. And I'm going to kind of explore this in a little bit of a jazzy scenario, but you could do this in any genre of music, and you could create things that sound like this. So I just use this device with a major 7th arpeggio, but you could use this device with any arpeggio or any scale, and it really adds this cool element to your playing where you're really skipping over notes, and it gives you some really wide interval jumps. And I played it ascending, so it almost sounds like you're climbing a staircase. It's very much a head-turning lick. I'm going to show you how to do that with an arpeggio, and we're using some string skipping because there's only one note per string on some of the strings. So if you haven't really done any string skipping, this might be a little challenging at first, but just stick with it and stay positive and you will get it. Just keep chipping away at it a little bit each day and you'll have it. And if you would like a free video lesson that's not available here on YouTube and a coinciding ebook, which I have tons and tons of scales diagrammed out, all kinds of written lessons and chord charts, we'll send it to you for free. All you have to do is click on the link in the text box below this video, and we'll send you a free video lesson and coinciding ebook, all for free from Next Level Guitar. So be sure and check it out. I've done some previous lessons on jazzy rhythms and the 2-5-1 progression, which is kind of like the meat and potatoes of jazz guitar, much like how the 1-4-5 is the meat and potatoes of like blues guitar. And we covered things like the 2-5-1, 3-6, 2-5-1, 2-5-1-6, and basically we were in the key of E flat major. So I'm going to now start teaching you how to solo over the rhythm. Okay, and this technique, this device that I'm going to teach you, works perfectly over this progression. So if you missed those lessons, basically we're in the key of E flat major. Okay, and the progression is basically a 2-5-1-6. So if the bass progression was an F minor 7 to a B flat 7 to an E flat major 7 to a C minor 7, kind of like. Now I showed you ways too in lessons that followed that rhythm lesson on how to comp chords for that and substitute different chords to jazz it up. Like I showed you, you could, instead of playing the F minor 7, play an F minor 9, and then instead of the B flat 7, go to B flat 13 or B flat 7 sharp 5. E flat 6-9 to C minor 9. I even talked about C minor 11, right? And those are all chords that you could sub to come up with different rhythms. Okay, so now we're going to start soloing over that. Now we're in the key of E flat major. And let me show you how to do this technique. It's all based off of skipping notes in a pattern. So we're going to take major 7th arpeggio, which is basically major 7th arpeggio is a 1 or root, the 3rd, the 5th, and the major 7. 1, 3, 5, 7. So in E flat, and there's arpeggio, and I'll tab this out for you so you can see it. Notice I dive down a half step below the root to get that major 7th. In this case, that's our D note, which is a very, very hip note, right? And you always want to kind of key in on that. And this arpeggio has a root with your finger on the A string. So just put you can play in any key, just put your first finger on the root. Here we'll do it at the 6th fret on the A string, so it's in E flat. Root, 3rd, 5th, major 7. There's that D note. Root, 3rd, 5th, major 7. I like to go up to that root again. It's a great arpeggio. That will be our bass. So get that arpeggio down. That's a great arpeggio. Mess around with it over that E flat major 7th chord. Notice I throw in those notes at the bottom and top of the arpeggio just to give it a little bit extra spice. All right, so what we're going to do is now we're going to create these wide interval jumps by skipping notes and strings in a pattern while playing that arpeggio. Let's start on the E flat note. Then instead of playing the third, let's skip to the fifth. Right? So then go back to the third. Then you skip over the fifth and go to the seventh. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to play a note, you're going to skip the next note in the arpeggio and play the note that follows it. Then go back to the skip note, skip over the next note, and go to the note that follows that. So you're constantly skipping over a note, and that's what causes this wide interval and gives you this kind of succession of climbing stairs. I'll ascend through the whole arpeggio using the skipping method. Right? A little faster. All right? So let me give you a few tips that will help you as you assimilate this into your playing and try to get this down. The tricky part, the first tricky thing you'll find is when you get to that B flat note, that fifth, the second time you play it. Now you have to skip over the G string because remember there's only one note that we're playing on that D string and you have to get to the B string to that G note. So what I do is I use the second finger and I lay it down flat and then I kind of roll it. When you're playing these arpeggio licks, you want to kind of kill each note as you play it because you don't want them bleeding into one another because that'll sound more like a chord. And here we the goal is to outline the chord shape. So we're inferring this E flat major 7th chord, but not playing it like that. We're playing it like that. So you want to practice that kind of rolling, and if you've played a lot of arpeggios before, you're familiar with this concept. So I'm playing that with my second finger on the D string, on that 8th fret, and the G note 8th fret on the B string, also with the second finger, rolling it. Now the next tricky part is again you got to skip over the B string when you play the D note, that major 7th, to the B flat, and I do that with my first finger. I just hop over it. But again, we're skipping strings. So let me do it real slow again. There's a skip, another skip, then the B string. Then you could slide up to the D note if you want to, and finish it off. And then just come down the arpeggio if you want a little practice. So you get a nice little device there. Work up the speed. There I went to another arpeggio, but it's going to depend on what the next chord is and whatever you're playing. But notice that the cool thing is I could do that I did it with an arpeggio, but I can do that with any scale. Once you get this technique down and you get that sound in your ear, you'll be able to apply it to any scale. Let's try it. We're in the key of E flat major. All the chords are diatonic to the key of E flat. Diatonic meaning in key. All those chords we're playing all have notes that are in the E flat major scale. It's all in the same key, therefore you can play E flat major scales will work over all the chords. That's called what I call soloing with what relates to all. You can play E flat major scales over all the chords. And that's good to start with. And then later we'll get into soloing over each chord as a separate event. So let's try it with a scale. So you might as well, one of the scales that you could use is just your basic E flat major scale. And if you don't know one, I'll show you one where that arpeggio lives inside. Again, we'll start with our first finger on that 6th fret. So this is a 5th string root. First finger on the root, and you could just move that to any key you want to. We're playing E flat, so we'll play it at the 6th fret. First finger on the E flat note. So here's the scale, and I'll tab it out for you. Descending. Right, so get real comfortable and fluid with that. So one thing I like to do when you're practicing your scales is try to play the whole scale through with hammer-ons. We'll hammer on when we're ascending and then pull-offs when we're descending. It's kind of a good way to practice it. because it'll give you some lick ideas. And to get it sounding more like a lick, we'll throw in an additional note on the pull-offs. Now you know the scale, and if you notice that arpeggio lives right within that scale. Practice the scale, the coinciding arpeggio, E flat major 7 arpeggio, E flat major scale, and also with hammer-ons and pull-offs. I like practicing those scales and arpeggios in different musical ways and adding little things like throwing in that root note in the major 7th and practicing them with pull-offs and hammer-ons and playing those in different ways only because it makes it sound more musical than just learning the scale, which can be very sterile. And obviously you're not going to just blow through that scale from beginning to end when you're playing a lead line. You know, you're going to be using little pieces and parts of it. Same thing with the arpeggio. Good arpeggio playing mixes the arpeggio notes in with scalar notes. And like I was playing and I got to the end and then I connected it to another arpeggio. I just didn't come straight back the same one. And that's kind of what good arpeggio playing does, right? It kind of connects and it kind of mixes in your arpeggios with your scales and your licks. So now we'll try the device with that scale where we're skipping over the notes. Same thing we did with the arpeggio where we'll play the first note in the scale, skip the second, go to the third, skip back to the second, skip the third, go to the fourth, right? Slow, it'll sound like this. And I'll just take it up one octave. Doesn't sound as good slow, but when you speed it up, it sounds pretty cool. And I always get questions about gear, so what I'm using in this lesson is a Mexican-made Fender Stratocaster from 1998, and I'm playing straight into the front of just a little Fender practice tube amp, a little Fender Champ 12 from the mid-80s, the one with the red knobs, very small little amp, and I just have a splash of reverb on. And that reverb is from the amp, so no effects, just plugged straight into the amp clean. Through this lesson I'm using the neck pickup and the neck and middle, so all the way up in that first position and then also in the second position on the Fender Strat. Loop that progression, try this device where you're skipping over with the arpeggio because it really sounds cool. It'll sound good with the scale too, but I really like using it with arpeggios. It's a little trickier because you got the string skipping, but you could do it. Practice that scale shape, practice it using the hammer-ons and pull-offs, practice it using the device where we're skipping notes. When you're working your scale, learn the corresponding arpeggio because it's really, really useful and you'll find yourself playing that a lot. And we just concentrated basically on playing over all the chords, and you could use any of that over all the chords. It'll sound the best obviously over the E flat major 7th chord in that progression, but it's all diatonic to the key of E flat. So in coming lessons we'll do more with the E flat major scales and arpeggios, and we're also going to start taking on each chord as a separate event. I appreciate your emails. I appreciate your support. Go to our website, nextlevelguitar.com. There's over 1,000 lessons on there. Video lessons, written lessons, beginners, intermediates, advanced, all genres of music, rock, blues, jazz, gypsy jazz, funk, acoustic, electric, surf, metal, shred. It's just absolutely packed. Check it out. There's a 3-day free pass right on the homepage. So take a test drive. Try it out for 3 days for free. All access pass. What have you got to lose? I think you'll like it. Try it out. I'm David Taub, co-creator of nextlevelguitar.com. You're the good people. Be sure to also click on that link in the text box below this video to get a free video lesson and coinciding ebook, all for free from Next Level Guitar. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon. Take care and rock on.